Morning, sirs. Barnaby Lowe from Al Jazeera. Any one of you can answer. My first question is, how, from the Philippine government's perspective, how significant an escalation is this that China is claiming that it had seized Sandy Cay, which is very much in close proximity to Philippine-occupied PAG-ASA Island?
Okay, I'll try to answer that question. As we all know, the information space nowadays is also a battleground. So it's really a matter of trying to dominate the information narratives, coming from various sources. So it is to the interest of the PRC if they are able to utilize the information space to intimidate and harass. So this is also one form of gray zone operations on the part of the PRC. That's why we called for this press conference, because this is an alarming news to the public. For us in the NTF WPS and to our security services, this is just one day in our lives. But to the public who will wake up today to news that a feature in the West Philippine Sea has been illegally seized by the Chinese Coast Guard is an alarming development, right? So we're here to debunk that and to assure the public that we have not lost the PAG-ASA case. Clearly, as shown by both the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard and the PNP Maritime Group, we conducted an interagency operation. There is no occupation of the PAG-ASA case yesterday, and we continue to monitor, and until today, there is no seizure or illegal occupation of those cases.
But is there any concern that China might be sending a signal that they're ready to occupy PAG-ASA Island, which is inhabited by around 200 Filipino civilians?
Well, responding first to your question, which is related to your follow-up, I think as we can already observe how the Chinese government plan out their strategy, it always starts with a lie. And then if you're not going to counter the lie, they're going to operationalize that lie and take possession of whatever narrative that they have. So right now, they are starting with the misinformation, telling the world, convincing the international community that they have already seized PAG-ASA case 1, 2, and 3. And then, if we're not going to debunk it, if we're not going to address such a lie, that will be the time that they're going to change and maintain that and operationalize such misinformation. And then the moment that they operationalize that kind of misinformation, it will be hard for a coastal state to counter those petty lies. That's why right now, under the National Task Force West Philippine Sea and the guidance of the National Security Advisor, Jan Eduardo Año, the moment that they started those kind of lies and misinformation, that's the first step that we need to address immediately. For them to stop lying, for them to stop making the world believe that they have seized control of PAG-ASA case, so that they cannot proceed to the next step, which is operationalizing and normalizing those kind of misinformation claims.
So there's no concern for now that they, because you're saying that because you're already debunking the lie.
It is a concern in a way that we address it already.
They have made the first step, so the second step is coming.
Well, the first step has always been happening. Like, for example, in Zambales, they have wanted to normalize their illegal patrol since January 4 when they sent out their monster ship. But it's already April. In 4 months, they have not operationalized it because we are always debunking this misinformation and normalizing of misinformation claim of the People's Republic of China.
The first step was taken in 1992 by the Chinese Communist Party. Their illegal presence, coercive and aggressive actions, and deceptive messaging have been in play since 1992 up to the present. The Philippine government has been very strong in defense diplomacy. What is happening right now Balikatan, this is the largest in terms of capability for the AFP. New weapon systems, new capabilities. The presence of the Shandong Carrier Battle Group is in response to what is happening with between the AFP and the other partner countries for Balikatan. If you look at different instruments of national power across the political, the economic, socio-cultural, techno-scientific, there have been incidents of malign influence. In the information domain, this incident is the latest of trying to shape the narrative, to draw the picture away from what is happening in Balikatan, what is happening in the maritime domain with the drones, what is happening across the political landscape, what the Chinese Communist Party should answer should be the check of their embassy paying troll farms to discredit this current government, rather than come up with fake news to shape the public discourse. They should address facts being presented.
So, siguro Barnaby, to add to our answer to your question is, it is not entirely clear to us what the intentions of the Chinese Coast Guard is. No, maybe you should ask them what their intentions are. But we will push back, and we will not allow falsehoods to remain unanswered, and we will continue to abide by the Declaration of Conduct, and we ask them to stop their provocative actions, because these are clearly provocative actions which are not helpful to either the Philippines or the People's Republic of China.
Any more questions from the media?
Cecil Morale of AFP, International News Agency. Sir, can you discuss whether is it possible for the Chinese to build over the Sun case? Is it possible for them? What are the chances that they will build? They will build an island, a new island. They already have Subi Reef nearby, but can they build? Is it in their interest to build one?
The AFP has been very strongly monitoring our maritime domain, not only in Sandy Cay, but to include Baho de Masinloc, to include Sabina, to include Ayungin, our northern islands. Any action that will go beyond the current status quo has already been declared a red line, especially when it comes to reclamation and building activities. Sandy Cay is only approximately 3 kilometers from Pag-asa. It is within monitoring distance by our forces stationed on the island. And as mentioned by the NTF and the Philippine Coast Guard, there were no presence whatsoever monitored when we sent the interagency team to Sandy Cay.
Admiral, can you explain what the red line is with respect to those Sun case?
Red lines are non-negotiables of the government. And there have been 4 red lines that have been stated. No reclamation on Baho de Masinloc or building of structures, non-interference in the resupply missions, no unilateral extraction of minerals in our EEZ. I'll check the 4th one, but 4 red lines have been declared. That would include building of structures apart from what is already established in the in Subi Reef, in Mischief Reef, and in the other areas. Sandy Cay, yes.
Any more questions, sir?
Sir Kelly Cordero po. Sir, may update po ba tayo dun sa pagdami ng Vietnamese fishing vessels sa Ilocos Norte?
I'll get back to you. Check ko lang muna.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Ian Cruz of GMA Integrated News. Sir, in case the Chinese actually seize the Pag-asa case, are we ready to retake it? Are we prepared? Do we have a contingency plan?
Well, as far as the National Task Force West Philippine Sea is concerned, we are guided by what the President has said when he made policy insofar as the West Philippine Sea is concerned. And the President clearly stated that we will not allow a single inch of Philippine territory to be taken away from us. As clearly mentioned by Admiral Roy Trinidad, PAG-ASA Case 1, 2, and 3 are within the territorial sea of PAG-ASA Island. Therefore, the Philippines exercises not just sovereign rights, not just jurisdiction, we exercise sovereignty over this 3 cases. So I guess I have already answered your question in accordance to the policy made by our President.
Hi, sir. Michael Denizo, ABS-CBN. I think what the public wants to hear now is how are we going to push back or, preserve our rights to Sandy case?
Well, I think the interagency maritime operation that we did yesterday is already an enough evidence of the commitment of the national government in pushing back with whether it's operational or informational strategy of the Chinese government. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard, and even the PNP Maritime Group are always ready to counter whatever actions necessary for us to carry out.
So you've given us, of course, the narrative and everything that transpired based on the narrative, of course, of the Philippine government yesterday when you sent a mission to Sandy Cay. But the Chinese Coast Guard also released a statement Sunday evening saying that it's dealt, quote unquote, with Philippine infringement of Sandy Cay. Obviously, you said that you spotted Chinese maritime militia vessels as well as Chinese Coast Guard vessels from a distance, but they're saying that they dealt with Philippine infringement.
Well, the Chinese government are always good in twisting factual narrative, spreading misinformation, distorting facts, even coming up with that kind of argument, right? So, to tell you honestly, there are no reported incidents or counter operation that they did when we completed this interagency maritime operation. Again, this is just a Chinese made-up story to downplay our successful mission yesterday.
And further to their questions, I mean, this is hypothetical, of course. You, of course, said that the Philippine government is committed to defend Philippine territory, which includes Sandy Cay or the PAG-ASA case. If the Chinese government does occupy the Sandy Cay as well as PAG-ASA Island itself, could there be a shooting war? Is the Philippine government prepared?
I think that's speculative. There's no reason for us to respond to that question.
Hi, sir. Good morning. We've been talking about concerns if ever China will build structure over at Sandy Cay 2 or 3. Hypothetical, pwede ba nating unahan yung China in building a structure over Sandy Cay's 2, 3 for us to protect our kasarinlan in that area?
Yes, unang-una kasi, there is such a thing as the 2002 Declaration of Conduct, no? And if you will notice, those of us here who have been reporting on this for a long time, the PRC always refers to the 2002 Declaration of Conduct. And one of the provisions of that declaration is that there is no occupation of unoccupied features. The status quo is to be maintained. So the Philippines, of course, adheres to that declaration. We adhere to both the spirit and the letter of that declaration. So at present, based on existing policy, and I'm not changing any policy, I'm just restating existing policy, we are not contemplating, no, the occupation of the construction of permanent features in PAG-ASA Case 1 and 2. And we urge the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese government to do the same. Okay? Now you have a follow-up?
Yes, please, sir. Continue, sir.
And then this is for another topic. Kasi nga, di ba, instead of the Chinese government or the Chinese Coast Guard creating this alarmist statements, no, which is intended to create panic in the Philippines. That's why we would like to ask the media to please help us debunk this, no? Kasi syempre, your headlines today, quote unquote, mentions the seizure of Sandy Cay. So you have to give equal space to our position, no? You also have to equal space to us, to give us the opportunity to assure the Filipino people and the world that no seizure actually happened. I think I joined Commodore Roy Trinidad in urging, Admiral Roy Trinidad, promoted syempre, to urge the Chinese embassy to explain the check no, that was exposed by Senator Tolentino, right? Blanket denials will not do. It was released in the Senate in a hearing. There's a contract. There is a check issued by the Chinese government, the Chinese embassy, in the name of Infinitus Marketing. And this Infinitus Marketing is obviously and clearly in the business of influencing Philippine political discourse. So rather than doing these things, they should explain to the world and to the Filipino people why they are interfering in the internal matters of the Philippine government, no, of the Filipino people. Why are they trying to influence the political discourse in this country, which is something that no diplomatic mission should be doing.
I would like to go back to the question about the Vietnamese fishing vessel. Last April 27, the Philippine Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Ronnie Hilgaban deployed the Philippine Coast Guard aircraft to conduct an MDA flight regarding the reported Vietnamese fishing vessels off the coast of Pasukin, Ilocos Norte. It conducted a 3-hour MDA flight, and unfortunately, we were not able to see the presence of the Vietnamese fishing vessel that were circulated to the social media. We are now reaching out to those fishermen who posted this on their social media accounts and the distance where they have located those Vietnamese fishing vessels. Because based on our MDA flight that we conducted last Saturday, there are no Vietnamese fishing vessels in that area that was reported.
Hi, sir. Sorry, last sa mga residente ng Pag-asa Island na nangangamba siguro for their security and for their safety after dito sa statement ng China.
Hi, sir. Ramon of Nikkei. Sir, how important is Sandy Cay to the Philippines? What's the importance of that particular maritime feature in the West Philippine Sea?
The guidance of the Commander-in-Chief of not 1 square inch covers all of our territory within the West Philippine Sea. Large or small, island or rock, any feature within the territorial boundaries of the Philippines is covered by that guidance of the Commander-in-Chief. Sandy Cay, maliit lang ito na feature Buhangin lamang, it will not even sustain life. But on that cay will rest our sovereignty. On that cay will rest the effort of every Filipino. Ipaglalaban natin yan sapagkat yan ay atin. Importante ang sandy cay sa atin, just as any other feature within the West Philippine Sea is part and parcel of Philippine territory.
Sir, follow-up lang po. Has the Philippines addressed claims of China that they mounted a study that claimed that the Philippines was responsible for the marine degradation around Sandy Cay?
All facts, even the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal, point that environmental degradation has been conducted not by the Philippine side, but by the Chinese Communist Party. Building of artificial islands destroyed a lot of the underwater environment. Maliwanag po yan.
Let me also add on the statement of Admiral Trinidad. Pag-asa Cay is actually within the territorial sea of Pag-asa Island. We have sovereignty over this Pag-asa case. Meaning, this is not just sovereign rights, we have sovereignty over these waters. That's how important this Pag-asa case to the Philippine government and to the Filipino people. Regarding your question about the environmental degradation, that the Chinese are saying that it is the Filipinos who dump garbages, plastic bottles, and wooden stick in Sandy Cays. I would like to remind you that last year, together with the media and some marine scientists, we conducted an environmental assessment as well in Pag-asa Case 1, 2, and 3. And again, we are still reaching out to those marine scientists for them to publicize their findings about what really caused the Sandy Cay to have those kind of dead corals dumped over these areas.
Okay, just to emphasize the importance of Pag-asa case, no, and to add to what Admiral Roy and Commodore J. Tariela has mentioned, the Philippines has sovereignty over the Sandy case. So it is as if it is the same level as Davao City, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu City, Quezon City, and Lawag, Ilocos Norte, and many other parts of the Philippines. Therefore, any affront to the sovereignty of the Philippines in the Pag-asa case is similar to an affront to the sovereignty of all other places in the mainland of the Philippine archipelago.
Of this case, and how far are they from T2, Pag-asa Island, and Subic?
Well, the nearest among the three Pag-asa case is of course Pag-asa K1, and then Pag-asa K2 and Pag-asa K3. The nearest Pag-asa K is less than 2 nautical miles from Pag-asa Island, and then the other succeeding is less than 3 and less than 3.5. As to the total area, the biggest among the Pag-asa case is Pag-asa K2. But I don't have the exact figure right now of the total land area.
There are possess 2 basketball courts that some reports say 200 square meters.
I don't want to provide the wrong information, but I'll get back to you. I'll send it to our group chat, the total land area of Pag-asa K2.
To Admiral Trinidad, sir, the Shandong, how close has it been to the exercises, to the Balikatan? And what is it doing apart from sailing close to? Is it monitoring electronically, things like that?
When this was first monitored last 22 April, it was traversing from west to east, and then on the 23rd was the last contact, early morning of 23 April. It was again picked up on the 25th at night until the 26th noontime. It was monitored conducting flight deck operations on 26 April from a distance of approximately 120 nautical miles northwest of Burgos, Ilocos Norte.
But how far from the exercises?
There are different exercises in the northern islands on land of mainland Luzon, so it would depend on from what reference point, but suffice it to say they were within if they're within 120 nautical miles of mainland Luzon, they would be closer to some of the areas of exercise.
It's sailing pattern and it's flight operations. Are they considered interference with our exercises?
They are not considered interfering with the BK exercises. The conduct of flight deck operations, in as much as they were already in international waters, although within our EEZ, but out of our territorial seas, they are permitted under UNCLOS.
But is it a concern that they are there while you're doing your thing?
We are concerned, that's why we monitor them closely.
Thank you, sir.
I would also like to take this opportunity, to request our media friends. Nung naibalita kasi ng China that they have seized control of PAG-ASA case, parang lahat yata ng media outlets, not just locally but even international media outlets, publicize that story. And right now, since the Philippine government has already debunked such lie and false story of the Chinese government, I hope you can also support the national government and for the interest of the Filipino people that such narrative is actually a lie. And we have provided photos and videos to tell the Filipino people that the national government is doing everything that is necessary for us to make sure that we're not going to lose an inch of our territory. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We do understand that, of course, the media, as part of your job, you need to report this, no? Pero maganda rin kung lagyan nyo ng allegedly, no? Allegedly seized, di ba? Para lang maliwanag that it's just one side of the story, and stories have two sides, and the truth sometimes takes a little bit of time to come out. If there are no more questions? Meron pa?
Oo nga. Sirs, do you think may kinalaman ng eleksyon dun sa ginawa nilang alleged seizure nga dun sa Sand case? Meron ba itong bearing sa incoming election?
You know, the timing is suspect. Really, for me, the timing is suspect because they know, Beijing knows that the elections are 2 weeks away, and yet they make this false announcement that they have seized a feature within the territorial sea of PAG-ASA Island. So I leave it to the public, no? I leave it to you what kind of objective they have in the information space here, no? But to me, it's suspect, and it raises a lot of questions. Why timing? Some people have said that it's a way to distract the public from the allegation that the Chinese embassy is funding trolls in the Philippines to influence the political discourse. But to me, it also validates the findings of the security and intelligence sector. It also validates our position that they are attempting to influence our elections because the timing is suspect, insofar as I'm concerned.
Commander, the Chinese landed on which K?
PAG-ASA K2.
K2.
Sir, may pahabol lang na tanong from our Congress. May hamon daw po ang Makabayan Block Solo na si Representative Franz Castro na pangalanan ng NSC yung mga kandidatong iniimpluwensyahan at sinusuportahan ng China, whether on disinformation o iba pang paraan. Your reaction po?
Alam mo kung minsan yung Makabayan kung ano-ano na lang ang inaano nila. Last week, sinabi nila na bakit daw tayo gumagastos at gagastos ng malaki to improve our armed forces. No? Because these types of activities daw to procure armaments for our armed forces, to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Navy, the Philippine Coast Guard. Mas maganda daw na gastusin na lang ito para sa ibang mga bagay. You know, and that kind of statement coming from Makabayan, ang sabi pa nila, these things daw add to the escalation, it is provocative. So sa loob-loob ko, spokesman na ba ang makabayan ng People's Republic of China? Why are they now speaking the same script that we hear from Beijing? So I will not dignify those statements anymore from the Makabayan bloc. It's really useless, and it's very disappointing for the National Security Council that the Makabayan bloc itself is now parroting the same statements coming from Beijing. It is a disappointment to us. Okay, since there are no more questions, maraming salamat po. Thank you for everyone for joining our press conference today. Thank you.
And that concludes our NTF WPS press conference.